at his partner's 70th birthday banquet. He spoke with tears in his eyes. In my 20s, I missed someone. She was my wife. Yet I was separated from her, becoming my regret for half a century. After speaking, he took out a marriage certificate from his pocket, prominently displaying his name alongside another woman's. At that moment, someone walked up from the audience and opened their arms to him. The two silver-haired individuals embraced and kissed in front of everyone. This kiss was dubbed the kiss of the century. I angrily stepped forward, but my son pulled me back. Mom, Mrs. Liu is someone I specially invited back, just to give Dad a surprise. Dad dedicated his life to his career, and fulfilling his regret for love is the reward he deserves. My most beloved grandson said, Grandma, you really shouldn't go out and embarrass yourself. If you step outside, others will only think you're grandpa's maid. I was so angry that my blood pressure skyrocketed, and I almost fainted. I could only watch helplessly as my partner walked hand in hand with someone else. The chandelier above suddenly fell, and I instinctively lunged to protect him, getting crushed on the spot. When I woke up again, I had returned to 1974, and my partner had also been reborn. Chapter 1. Rose. That pale-faced son-in-law of yours took the fainted Lisa to your house. You should go take a look, a child rushed over to say. Hearing these words, I realized that I had been reborn. Looking at the tattered cloth shoes and my muddy feet beside me, I hurried home barefoot while holding my shoes. Just before entering the house, I faintly heard my fiancé Duncan's voice. Lisa, how are you feeling? We're back. And this time, we will live better than in our previous life. But Lisa whispered through her tears, Duncan, how could we be reborn at this time? Can't we wait a few more years? I'm really scared of this kind of life right now. Duncan said, don't be afraid. Lisa, this time, I will hold your hand tightly and never let you leave my side again. I won't let you suffer anymore. Lisa stammered, well, Rose, what about it? Are you still going to marry her? Duncan firmly said, in this lifetime, my wife will only be you. I smiled, realizing that everyone had been given a second chance at life. I rushed in and slapped them both. How dare you hug and cuddle in my house? Do you have no shame? Duncan and Lisa were both stunned. Duncan shouted, Rose, what nonsense are you talking about? I slapped him again, the mud on my hands splattering onto their faces, causing Lisa to scream. What is that? So dirty. I raised my head and looked at them, warning them not to mess around in my house. Both of them turned red with anger. I returned to the foot of the mountain to continue making mud bricks. The bricks had already piled up all over the ground, ready to be used for building the wedding house. Duncan's father saved my parents' lives. After the incident at his home, the Zhao family used their last bit of connections to arrange for Duncan's placement in our village. To protect him, his father urged my family to form a marriage alliance with theirs. Because at that time, my family, being poor peasants, had the best status. In my previous life, after marrying Duncan, my whole family worked hard just to support his education. It was only after he worked for 7 years that he brought me back to the city. He became a highly praised professor, while I was just an illiterate rural woman. After he moved to the city, he did not abandon me, and our family was therefore grateful to him, treating him like a deity. Chapter 2. I bore him children and took care of him meticulously, looking after his elderly grandparents, his paralyzed father, and his mother with dementia. I thought we would be a model couple for 50 years, a symbol of enduring love. But unexpectedly, he only regarded me as a free maid. The one he has loved from beginning to end is his childhood sweetheart Lisa. Thinking of this, the hand shaping the mud became more forceful. This house, he cannot live in. I can. I just didn't expect that Duncan would actually bring Lisa to my house for dinner. My father's frown deepened. He tapped his pipe and said to my mother, cook more rice and stir-fry some broad beans. Duncan calmly said to my father, Uncle, I know this is hard to say, but Lisa fainted while working today. She hasn't been resting well at the sent down youth point and wants to move in with us. Can you arrange a room for her? Lisa said shyly, Duncan, actually, it doesn't have to be that troublesome. The people at the sent down youth point snore. making it hard for me to sleep. Maybe it will get better after a while. I'll just endure it for now. Duncan furrowed his brow. Snoring is a habit that can't be changed. Rose, you can handle this as you see fit. He commanded me as he did in a past life. I almost instinctively agreed, but upon seeing the yellow and black earthen wall in front of me, I realized that this time I didn't have to obey him. I directly said, Duncan, my family is poor. You see, the rooms in my house are both broken and small. My 2 older brothers can only squeeze into one room. It was already very difficult to let you move in. Duncan immediately frowned and looked at me. My father hit me with his smoking pipe. How can you talk to your Duncan like that? When has your Duncan ever looked down on our poor family? No matter how small the house is, we can still squeeze together. Lisa can share a room with you. You can squeeze together. I complained, but I snore too. It will disturb her. Lisa's tears fell as she said, no need, Uncle. Thank you. I will just go back to the send down youth point. Duncan seriously surveyed my house, suddenly pointing to the attic piled with firewood and said, Rose will move in there. And your room will be for Lisa. I widened my eyes, and even my dad shot a surprised glance at Duncan, but my dad still readily agreed, wait a moment. Your mom and I will go tidy up the attic, and Rose can move in. I stood up angrily. Dad, are you making me live above a pigsty? My father took a puff of his cigarette and said, how about your mother and I move out? In the end, I was still forced to give up the room, because I am the lowest existence in this family. Anyone can command me and order me around. They can still hit and scold me when they are unhappy. The current me has no ability to resist at all. Smelling the stench of pig manure from below the attic and hearing the grunting of pigs, I feel very lost. Duncan returned with the same sense of superiority from his past life, accustomed to giving orders to me and my family. Even if he doesn't want to marry me, he still wants to rely on my family to live a good life. In his past life, he at least had a thin skin, secretly using my family's things to support Lisa. This time, he directly brought Lisa into the house. It is now 1974, and there are still 2 years until the college entrance examination is restored. During these 2 years, I not only have to support Duncan, but also his love interest. I was not willing to give up, so I secretly found an opportunity to tell my parents that Duncan didn't like me at all, that he wouldn't marry me, and that he just wanted to take advantage of my family. My father, holding his smoking pipe, gave me a beating. Rose, one must have a conscience in life. If it weren't for the eldest son of the Zhao family saving our whole family, where would you have the chance to come into this world? One must be grateful. As long as Duncan hasn't said he wants to marry someone else, he is still my family's son-in-law. Chapter 3. I can only remain silent. I need to make money. Even after a tiring day, I still went up the mountain after work, chopped a load of firewood, and prepared to carry it to the town to sell. On the way, I encountered Lisa and Duncan. Lisa was holding a bouquet made of wildflowers and weeds, while Duncan's basket was filled to the brim with wildflowers. He handed me the basket. When you go sell firewood, also sell this basket of flowers. It was personally arranged by Lisa, and it will definitely fetch a good price. With the money from the sale, buy a few handkerchiefs. I looked at him speechlessly. It was 1974, and I had to sell firewood secretly. He actually wanted me to sell flowers? Besides, everyone is still struggling to fill their stomachs. Who would buy such useless things? I shot him a glare and said, Duncan, do you even realize what time it is? Aren't you afraid of getting caught? Go ahead and sell if you dare. Lisa protested quietly, but your firewood can be sold. They really have had it too good for too long, forgetting the lessons of their past lives. I let out a cold laugh and said, then go ahead and try. Let's see if the police catch you. The two looked at each other. As I was leaving, I heard Duncan say, Lisa, it's still a special time. These flowers can't be sold. Let me make you a small garden instead. My heart stirred, and I quickened my pace. Sneaking home, I pulled my father and secretly hid to watch. Duncan arranged the freshly picked flowers into a circle, allowing Lisa to wear a flower crown made of the flowers. Lying in the midst of them, he excitedly spun around. Lisa, you are truly beautiful. Don't move. I'll go home right now to get paper and pencil to capture your beauty in this moment. He ran back excitedly, not noticing the two people crouching in the grass beside him. I asked my father, Dad, Duncan clearly likes Lisa. Why do you want me to marry him? Are you trying to repay a debt or seek revenge? I thought my father would change his mind after seeing the scene. Unexpectedly, it only strengthened his determination to have me marry Duncan. That evening, my father took out 15 yuan and 5 cloth tickets and handed them to Duncan. Duncan, you and Rose are getting old enough. Tomorrow I will start building a new house for you. You and Rose should go to the town tomorrow to get your marriage certificate. Also, buy a couple of outfits to wear for the wedding. I opened my mouth but said nothing, because my words carry little weight. Duncan surprisingly did not refute, put away the money, and agreed. The next day, when Duncan and I went to the village to get a letter of introduction, Duncan said, Rose, don't you still have a bundle of firewood to sell? Let's take the firewood with us. On the day we got our marriage certificate, my mom asked me to change into something newer, but he still made me carry the firewood. How despicable! On the way, we indeed encountered Lisa waiting there. I said nothing and walked ahead lost in my thoughts. When we arrived in town, Duncan said to me, Rose, give me the introduction letter, and I'll take care of it. You hurry up and sell the firewood. I took a deep look at him and Lisa, and handed over the introduction letter. I chopped down a load of 90 pounds of firewood from the mountain, then walked 7 kilometers to the town. My shoulders chafed red on both sides, and I only sold it for 50 cents. With the 50 cents in hand, I walked around the supply and marketing cooperative, but couldn't buy anything. I arrived at the junkyard, and after searching through the stench-filled refuse for a long time, I finally found what I needed. When I arrived at the place Duncan had mentioned, he waved his hand dismissively and said, Why do you smell so bad? I didn't take it to heart and went to the nearby ditch to wash myself off. But then I saw Lisa running over excitedly with a white canvas sun hat on her head. Hey, Duncan bro, do you think this hat looks good? I managed to grab it after a lot of effort. As she spoke, she took out a white cotton shirt and held it up against herself. A new batch of clothes just arrived today, and I managed to snag the last 2 pieces. Duncan looked at her with a face full of affection. Beautiful. Really beautiful. The money and tickets my father gave him, he used to buy clothes and hats for Lisa. I silently watched for a while and asked Duncan, Where's the marriage certificate? I want to see it. In my past life, I also obtained a marriage certificate with Duncan, and since I couldn't read, he kept it. But the marriage certificate that had been kept for 30 years turned out to be in another woman's name. Duncan looked somewhat unnatural. You can't read, so even if I give it to you, you won't understand it. That's my marriage certificate. Can't I even take a look at it? Duncan angrily pulled out the marriage certificate and threw it at me. Look, can you, illiterate, even recognize a flower? I took the marriage certificate and read it word by word. Duncan, male, 22 years old. Lisa, female, 21 years old, voluntarily married, examined and found to comply with the marriage regulations of the People's Republic of China. This certificate is issued. Duncan and Lisa's faces turned pale in that moment. Lisa shouted in a high-pitched voice, You can read. Chapter 4. In my previous life, I was the wife of a university professor. To be worthy of him, I worked hard to study in addition to doing housework. I not only learned to read but also studied other things. I coldly smiled and said to Duncan, You are truly shameless, taking my family's money to buy things for others, getting a marriage certificate with someone else, and still pretending to be my family's son-in-law. Duncan, do you really think I am so easy to deceive? Duncan's face turned even paler, and beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. Before he could speak, Lisa said, Rose, marriage is free now. Don't think you can use the kindness of our parents to threaten Duncan. We will not yield. I asked word by word. Duncan, clarify for me, who is trying to repay kindness with malice? Is it the Wu family or the Zhao family? Since you look down on my Wu family, yet live in my family's house and spend my family's money, how can you have such a big face? Duncan said, Rose, how could you know how to read? I grinned and replied, Because I, like you, have been reborn. Hearing me say this, Duncan let out a sigh of relief, then reproached me, Rose, since you have also been reborn. I won't say much more to you. In my last life, I gave you 50 years of a de facto marriage. You should be satisfied. In this life, I only want to be with Lisa. After he finished speaking, he affectionately took Lisa's hand, and the two gazed at each other with deep feelings. A pang of pain struck my heart, as the lingering grievances and unwillingness from my past life clashed in my chest. I deceived myself, being his nanny for 50 years. Yet it became his charity towards me. I hate it so much that I grit my teeth and slapped both of them. You two really disgust me. Duncan, did you think I really wanted to marry you and be your servant for life? Why don't you mention that you deceived me for 50 years, and that the marriage certificate isn't even in my name? If it weren't for our Wu family working hard to support your education, do you think you could have smoothly finished college? Lisa angrily said, Enough, Rose. Since you also came back to life, you should know about Duncan's future achievements. He will be a professor with many students. How can you only think of yourself and not consider what Duncan has contributed for the future? In my heart, there is sorrow, just because I am a rural woman, just because I am insignificant. Can you enjoy the fruits of my labor while trampling on my dignity with a clear conscience? Just because I have not made a greater contribution, do I deserve to be your stepping stone for a lifetime? To be looked down upon by you for eternity? Duncan let out a breath, tightly furrowing his brow. All right, Rose. If you feel wronged, then from now on, we will go our separate ways. I will make it clear to your father. I absolutely will not have any further entanglements with you. I laughed and replied, All right, Duncan. I hope you keep your word. As long as Duncan spoke, my father would definitely not refute. Sometimes, I really doubt that if Duncan wanted my life, my father would agree without hesitation. The way home was easy. I didn't want to walk with them, so I took another path. When I got home, Duncan and Lisa were surprisingly still in my house. My parents looked at the marriage certificate with joy, tears of excitement in their eyes. Good, good. Finally living up to Zhao Big Brother's trust. I could tell at a glance what was going on, and just as I was about to speak, I was pulled out of the house by Duncan. I angrily questioned, Duncan, do you think my parents are illiterate? That you can deceive them like this? Has your conscience been eaten by a dog? Chapter 5. Duncan, however, helplessly said, Rose, I have my reasons. Uncle Wu has taken care of me for a long time, and I really can't bring myself to tell him about marrying someone else. Besides, my father has saved the Wu family's life before. I think if I can get through these 2 years at your home, I will make it up to you later. I sneered. Compensation? What do you have to compensate? Everyone in the village knows I was married to you. In the future, when you go to university and work in the city, I will become the abandoned woman. How will you let my parents hold their heads high in the village? How will you let me live in the village? As for the life-saving grace, just name a price, and I'll buy it out. I don't want you to spend your whole life repaying a debt of gratitude, draining my family's blood dry. You should know that in another life, whether or not you marry me will not affect your identity. Why do you have to cling to my family so desperately? Duncan looked very pale. Rose, how can you look at me like that? I'm not that kind of person. You are. I interrupted him, since you married Lisa. Don't drag me into this. Duncan wanted to say something else, but his expression suddenly turned ugly. My father appeared behind me with a dark expression. I don't know how much my father heard, but he smoked grass all night. In the end, I decided to give my family's new house to Duncan and Lisa to live in, and then give him 20 gene of grain every month until he goes to college. I can be considered to have fulfilled Zhao father's request. Before the new house was completed, they still lived with my family. Duncan said, before they get into college, let's not tell anyone about his marriage to Lisa. The family agreed. Finally free from this arranged marriage, I felt a sense of joy wash over me. I worked harder with my hands shaping the earth. When I had some free time, I took the 2 yuan I had painstakingly saved up and found the carpenter in the village. I asked him for a few wooden planks to make a fan cart. In my past life, when I finished my household chores, my favorite thing to watch was the agricultural channel. I really enjoyed those videos of talented people improving farming tools. I found them online and watched them repeatedly, and I even tried making some myself. However, the things I made ended up becoming toys for my grandchildren. Now, the knowledge I have learned has finally come in handy. 3 days later, the first fan cart I made was brought to the threshing ground. The villagers watched as I effortlessly poured a 100-pound bag of rice into the fan cart, separating the clean grains from other impurities in no time. Marveling in amazement, this fan cart is so easy to use that even a 10-year-old child can handle it effortlessly, and the rice chaff won't blow all over you, leaving you covered in dust and pain. It's much better than the old fan cart. The captain excitedly tried it out again and again, and immediately decided to have me make 20 more for the village. Every day, I earn 10 work points without having to provide the wood, and for each fan cart I make, I also get 1 yuan. Hearing this news, my parents' faces lit up with joy. Duncan looked at me with a complicated expression in the crowd. Later, I also helped improve the thresher. The new thresher cleans the harvested rice very well and is effortless to use. It can thresh an acre of rice in just over 10 minutes. The captain was so pleased that he postponed the entire team's rice harvesting time just to wait for me to fix all the threshers in the team. Before long, even the people from other teams heard the commotion and came over to ask for my help in improving the threshers. Actually, I also wanted to make a time-saving and labor-saving long sickle to cut the rice. But unfortunately, I was just too busy. The busy farming season was not yet over when the people from the machinery factory came looking for me. On the day I went to get the marriage certificate, I took a different route and saw a tractor that had broken down. Chapter 6. That tractor had been used for a long time and was already in a semi-abandoned state. It had fallen off the embankment and was completely out of commission. A group of men fiddled with the tractor for half a day, but there was still no sign of movement, and they could only hold their heads in frustration and cry. I lied to them that I was a technician, spent half a day fixing the tractor, and used the copper wires and screws I salvaged from the scrapyard. When the tractor driver brought the tractor to the machinery factory for maintenance, the factory manager saw the modifications I made and thought I was a rare talent, wanting to invite me to work at the machinery factory. Of course, with a probation period, I certainly agreed. 3 months later, the new house at home was completed, and I was outstanding in my performance, being hired as a formal employee by the machinery factory. At this moment, Duncan and Lisa came over. He stammered for a long time and said, "Rose, can you give your job at the machinery factory to Lisa?" I was only surprised for a moment and immediately shook my head. Duncan quickly said, "Rose, think of a way to talk to the people at the machinery factory. Lisa studied engineering in her past life. She is more suitable for this position than you." I asked in confusion, "Aren't you guys going to college? Why are you interested in a position of an ordinary worker like me?" Lisa held her chin up and said, "You are from the countryside. If you had a second chance, doing this farm work wouldn't be difficult for you. But Duncan and I are intellectuals. Doing such heavy farm work would only waste our time. We are to contribute to the construction of our motherland, and I feel that these 2 years cannot be wasted. We can first take on the roles of workers and then go on to take the university entrance exam." Lisa finished speaking, and Duncan nodded, looking deeply convinced. In his past life, Duncan taught Chinese education in university, but now he couldn't showcase any of his talents. I laughed and said to the two of them, "Since you both think you are capable, then go and fight for it. Why take my place? You two esteemed intellectuals. How can you not measure up to me, a mere illiterate?" Duncan let out a sigh. "Rose, you should know that we are now like a tiger that has fallen into the plains and is being bullied by dogs. So can you help me?" I glanced at him and said, "No, yes," came a firm voice from behind me. It was my father. He looked seriously at Duncan and said, "Duncan, I agree with Rose to let you have this job, but it can only be for you. This is how our Wu family repays your Zhao family's life-saving grace." Duncan stared at my father and replied, "Okay, Uncle Wu. Thank you." I jumped out and said, "Dad, I disagree." But my father slapped me backhandedly and said, "When I promise something, you have no say in it." I still went to work at the machinery factory. Lisa also went. Her job was something I asked the factory manager for. I gave the factory manager 2 blueprints for improved agricultural machinery before he gave her this job. My father insisted on giving the job to Duncan, but the job was transferred to Lisa just a month after it reached Duncan's hands. The factory manager turned a blind eye for my sake. I told my father that after handing over the job, it would be like repaying him for raising me. My father flew into a rage, scolding me for being unfilial. I wiped my tears and said to my father, "Dad, you are the one who received the favor. You want me to repay you, but I have already cleared my debt. What more do you want from me? From now on, my lord, I will do it my way." Chapter 7. I worked while studying in the machinery factory, using the skills I learned in my previous life to create several small items. I immersed myself in what I loved, and before I knew it, a year had passed. When I returned to my hometown with the improved thresher, I ran into Zhao Weiming and Lisa holding their wedding. Their wedding house was in the home I had built with my own hands, and my father was beaming with joy as he arranged their wedding, as if Duncan were his own son. In fact, I had also thought about how, in my last life, I was so devoted to the Zhao family, unable to break free from my father's constant teachings in my ear. He always says that I am just an unskilled rural woman, and that marrying a college student is entirely a blessing he has brought me. So I should know to be grateful. He tells me to be diligent, to be obedient, to endure hardships, and to be tolerant and magnanimous. He says that this is how women are. Only when their husbands succeed can they enjoy blessings. He always says that if you endure hardships now, you will be able to enjoy blessings later. But I have endured a lifetime of hardships, and in the end, I don't even have the right to stand by my husband's side. Duncan looked at me warily when I returned, afraid that I would cause a scene at his wedding. I can only smile and congratulate them. Lovers finally become a couple. Duncan, actually in the last life, you could have divorced me early and been with Lisa openly. Why didn't you two end up together in the last life? I asked him with confusion. Duncan's expression stiffened, and he remained silent. Suddenly, a thought struck me. I remembered something. Duncan picked me up back to the city, which seemed to coincide with the time when Zhao's grandparents fell ill and were bedridden, while Zhao's father and Zhao's mother were busy with work, and Lisa had gone abroad at that time. I understand now. My greatest role for him is to take care of the family and look after my parents. Not long after, the news of the resumption of the college entrance examination came. Duncan and Lisa both got into college, and Lisa was also pregnant. I heard that Lisa and Duncan had a big fight, and she wanted to go to the hospital to have an abortion. But the doctor refused to perform the surgery, saying it was too dangerous for her. When I returned to the village, I happened to see Duncan holding Lisa tight. "Lisa, this child is the crystallization of our love. Can you really bear to get rid of him? You only have to delay a year in school, but there is a life inside you. I promise you, after I go to college, I will come back to see you whenever I have time. When you have the baby, just let my mom take care of the child, and then you can go back to school. Is that okay?" Lisa cried with tears like pear blossoms. I worked so hard to get that score, applied to my favorite school and major, and you want me to stay home and have a baby? Duncan, you are really selfish. Do you think college is that easy to get into? There will be more candidates next year, and the exams will be harder. Don't you know? Duncan was still comforting her. "Lisa, for our future, can't you sacrifice a little?" I really laughed. In a past life, he made me sacrifice a little, and now, he wants Lisa to sacrifice a little. Lisa shoved him away. "If I have to sacrifice, then why isn't it you who sacrifices a little? The acceptance letter has arrived. That one is Duncan. And there's Lisa." At that moment, the bell on the postman's bicycle rang. The two quickly took their acceptance letters. After opening and reading her acceptance letter, Lisa put hers away, snatched Duncan's letter, and tore it to shreds. The postman and I stood by, both stunned. Duncan cried out in despair. "Lisa, what are you doing? Do you know what that is?" "That's my acceptance letter." He hurried to snatch the fragments from Lisa's hand, but no matter what, he couldn't piece them together. I gently whistled from the side. "Lisa, you really did a great job." Lisa coldly said, "Duncan, I can't go to college. And you shouldn't think about it either. Chapter 8. I didn't continue watching their farce. After giving a portion of my savings to my mom, I went back to work at the machinery factory. Later, Duncan still boarded the train to report to school. He originally wanted to take Lisa with him, but Lisa refused. He entrusted Lisa to the care of the Wu family, and my father happily agreed. Before Duncan left, he specifically came to find me. Rose, you're in the city. Can you help keep an eye on Lisa? She's not very stable mentally, and I'm afraid something might happen to her. I refused without hesitation. This is between you two. Don't come to me, Duncan said discontentedly. Rose, no matter what, we've been married for 50 years. Can't you be a little less heartless? I looked at him coldly. Duncan, you also said we've been married for 50 years. But what did you say at your birthday party back then? You said your one true love was her Lisa. How can you treat me this way and still have the nerve to say I'm heartless? You've only ever seen me as a useful nanny, and now you want to talk about feelings? He left in a dejected manner. Not long after Duncan left, Lisa quit her job and also left. He didn't know who informed Duncan, but Duncan returned to the school, frantically inquiring about Lisa's whereabouts. He even went to Lisa's hometown and searched through various relatives' homes, but found nothing. 3 months later, someone left a baby at his doorstep, wrapped in a blanket with an envelope that told Duncan this was his son, and instructed him not to inquire about her whereabouts. Duncan held the child, nearly going mad. At this time, his parents had not yet returned to work, and as a college student without any source of income, he relied entirely on my father to support him. Not to mention that there was now an additional child. He hadn't returned to school for a long time, and the school warned him that if he didn't go back soon, he would be expelled. In desperation, Duncan called my father and brought the child to find me. As soon as my father saw me, he smiled and said, "Daughter, Duncan's wife has run away, and he needs someone to take care of him. You should come back and help him with the child." Hearing my father's words, I felt a chill in my heart. Duncan's jaw was surprisingly covered in dark stubble. Rose, I really have no other choice. After thinking it over, I can only entrust this child to you. You are a woman. You can take care of children. Please help me, and I will remember your great kindness for the rest of my life. My cold rejection. I have my work to do. I have my career to focus on. If you want to take care of the children, you can find a nanny. Duncan lowered his head as my father pulled out the smoking pipe and tried to hit me. I quickly snatched the smoking pipe away. It wasn't that I couldn't fight back before, but filial piety made me endure. My father angrily said, "As a woman, what career do you have? In the end, aren't you just going to marry, have children, and take care of the home? If you don't take care of the children, who will? Your 2 brothers are already married and have kids. Your mother and I can't spare the time to take care of them, so it has to fall to you. I tell you, if you don't behave, I will come to the factory every day to make a scene. I'll make sure your manager fires you." Duncan continued to plead. "Rose, please, as long as you help me get through this tough time, I will definitely compensate you. Whatever kind of job you want in the future, I can help you find it." I shook my head and said, "No, you can't help, just as I can't help you. Dad, this is the last time I call you Dad. I have returned everything I owe you. When you grow old, I will take care of you and my mom, but I will not listen to your words anymore. So don't come looking for me." In front of them, I closed the door. I have now been promoted to an engineer in the factory, but there are still many principles I don't understand. I have to fight for every second to read and learn. I don't have time to deal with these trivial matters. Later, when I returned to the village, I heard that Duncan was still expelled from university, and he was struggling to get by with his children in the village. Both of my older brothers are already married with children. Even if my father wanted to support him, he had no extra money and could only work even harder to earn work points. But for those who scrape a living from the land, it is still a drop in the bucket. 3 years later, Lisa came back to divorce Duncan. After she gave birth to the child, she found someone more than 20 years older than her, claiming that he was her true love. It took her 2 lifetimes to understand Duncan naturally disagreed, and during the argument, Duncan was pushed and fell into a ditch, breaking his leg. Lisa tried to run but was caught by the villagers. Duncan became disabled. Lisa paid him a large sum of money, and the two were entangled for a long time before finally getting divorced. Duncan had someone tell me that he was wrong, that the person he loved was me, and that he wanted to get a marriage certificate with me and have a real wedding. I replied to someone, "Get lost. I have long since broken free from my shackles, soaring in different skies. Yet he still wants to drag me down to hell in the name of love." I have finally understood that for people like Duncan and my father, my greatest revenge is to no longer obey, to no longer be compliant, and to simply live well for myself.